Well, this actually has a name. It's called Doomscrolling. And my next guest, who is a journalist who's turned comedian, Suchandrika Chakrabarti, has written a show all about it. I am obsessed by this whole topic. And I'm so pleased to welcome her. Welcome to the Sunday afternoon show.
Thank you for having me.
So here you are then. So you're a journalist, right? So, and you were listening to what I was saying out there. And would you agree then that what a newsroom put together is their choice? They create a news bulletin. Each newsroom, each paper decide what they're going to put into a news bulletin.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a sense of knowing who your audience is and what they need to know. And in a digital age, so I started out in newspapers, but as newspapers were becoming sort of digital, and you can watch on a board now, like how the stories are all doing. The top 20 are there. Gosh. So like you can't have this in a live environment. It would drive you off the edge, but it wouldn't be good for you. But your producers will know kind of what's doing well, and you can see how people are coming through social media or the front page of the website and all of that. And it is really interesting. Sort of bad news travels fast, but then the follow-up's interesting. And you mentioned earlier, could you do some good news stories and use that as a way to get people in? And I think sometimes you can have really positive, thoughtful, uplifting follow-up stories. For instance, when I worked on a national newspaper site, we knew, for instance, when there was sort of a disaster or a terrorist attack, there's a pattern to how that works and the way that the stories grab the attention. So people need to know immediately, is this going to affect me or my children, my family? Like, where is it? And then over the next few days, they want to hear about the heroes.
All right.
The families who came close to disaster,
right,
but didn't. And then later on, you can do follow-ups and people who do fundraisers because they lost someone. So there is good news. Like, people do good things.
Want it, and they want the survivors. They want to hear those good stories. So we do eventually. So it is like we go on this. Sorry, this sounds so awful. If anyone's been affected by any horror stories that we're talking about, similar scenarios, please, I apologise now. But I'm so interested in the human traits of what we want in storytelling, although these are, real stories, what we want. So we want a beginning, a middle and an end, and a nice payoff, which goes to what I was saying earlier. Most news items of bulletins will end with a light item. So we go to sleep a bit happier.
I love an animal friendship. That is my beat.
That's it, isn't it?
Usually it's a dog and someone, which is exactly like, dogs are the friendliest, they're the best ones. But I like a really surprising, like a cat is not a friendly animal generally to anyone, but a cat and a duckling shouldn't work. But I do love those. And I think it speaks to the duality in everyone. And you mentioned earlier about the kindness and the cruelty. And like, we have the potential for both in all of us. But like, for instance, because I've worked in journalism and always felt my social media is very public and it's an extension of who I am and also should be true to who I am, because you're reaching out to possible interview subjects. I've never gotten a fight online, but I've sort of been in a position, someone called power, and I think that's the issue with social media. Who feels they have power and has a persona to keep up, and who feels powerless and they tend to turn, not tend to, a very tiny minority of people might turn to trolling.
And do you think that, so because trolling, absolutely, because I'm so heavily trolled, I suppose, I'm fascinated by this. But no, because it doesn't, I've been in the worst soap opera ever on television. I literally have a suit of armour. But I am fascinated by the mindset because would you or anybody just think, I'm just going to pick on this person, I've never met them, but I'm just going to just keep picking on them? What is that? Is it like you said, control? That they have to have no control?
I think it's the same thing that motivates heckling in comedy. So you can see why, like, I've not been in a newsroom for 5 years now, I've gone freelance, but it's taken me this long to kind of digest all these years in digital journalism and what was going on and why these people who don't know me, like, I've not had a lot of trolling, but I've helped out a lot of reporters in like regional offices. I remember being in Birmingham somewhere and someone said, she's got the wrong accent, and it's like, she's from here, like, you should be proud. And it is often very, very broad brushstrokes, a fairly gendered thing from people who do seem to be
women.
Yeah, tends to be people who are not men who get the brunt of it, right? And it really got me thinking. So the psychology absolutely fascinates me, and that's a huge part of really the show, kind of human beings don't change over time, but the technology and the way the news is sped up is kind of changing us. And I think it's a control and power thing where it is quite recently that women didn't get to have spaces outside the home where we could have our voices heard. That is just true, like 50, 75 years ago. And add to that any other demographics. I'm a woman of colour, add anything else onto that. And it's just a bit like, well, why are you getting heard? And why don't I get a go? And we live in a time of huge inequality, of people really struggling. Add those two things together, of course you're going to get this kind of yelling into the abyss. It's not really at you. So that's what I sort of said to people. I was training people in that last job. In a weird way, it feels very personal. They might have been commenting on your hair or your skirt, but it's actually not about you because they don't know you. They're projecting onto you. It's a weird, horrible parasocial relationship.
Isn't it? And are you saying then that it was ever thus? I mean, I don't know if it was Steve because somebody, I've quoted it as being Steve Coogan. It probably wasn't, but somebody in the public domain described social media as the sewer that runs through society. Now, I use it all the time. You use it. I mean, we can all criticise it, but we use it. But was there ever a sewer that ran through society before? It's just no outlet for it, do you think, before?
I think it's possibly reflecting his experience as a very famous person and people projecting onto him and having this parasocial relationship with him where he has been famous for a very long time. Is great. Like, I love Alan Partridge so much. And so there's a perceived power that why does he get to do that and why don't I? I'm very funny. And that may be true, you're very funny, but that's kind of the way the world is set up. People try to be funny online as well, and people are very funny online. And that's a power thing as well. Like, look at me. I mean, like I feel it too. I'm a stand-up. I beg for attention. You want to be seen and have people know you're there and validate you. And that's so human. And we have both the things in us. Both, if someone tweets out, does someone know a good pub in Shoreditch? Like, you'll try and help them. But then also I'm trying to get attention. Like, I'm both those things too.
Of course. I'm so intrigued. So because when you came in off air, I just said, oh, are you going up to Edinburgh? And you went, no, I'll go next year. So is this a tryout? Will you do this in Edinburgh, this show in Edinburgh next year?
Yes, yeah. So I think Camden Fringe is an amazing opportunity in London to get stage time. The people who run it, Michelle and Zena, are fantastic. And it's because I'm from London, it's nice to be on home turf.
Quite cruel though, aren't they? Mind you, they are at Edinburgh as well. So it's like, sort of, you're not in Keswick in some church hall thinking, I'll just try this out gently and see how it goes. Jump into Camden, jump up to Edinburgh. But you went up to Edinburgh before with a show, which is a great title. Just say it again.
I Miss Amy Winehouse.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
And so did you enjoy it when you were up there?
Yeah, I mean, so I did the full run, and I've noticed this year people are doing a lot more sort of 2 weeks, and it's just so expensive, which is something I will consider in the future. But it was my first show, my debut, full month. So about 20 shows, 12, 15 every day. I enjoyed it. So I'd written my show in May 2021 and I'd taken it around quite a lot. And I got to a place where I felt I understood it and knew what it was about. It's about grief, and it's about finding solutions to grief. So it's not very dark humour, because I don't really do that. And it's not, I mean, it obviously it's sad in places, but it's about sort of that life afterwards. And I guess we mentioned it earlier in this interview where the bad thing happens, but I quite like to shine the light on how do the people survive and actually thrive and smile again.
It's something that on my late show we talk about a lot. We do a meditation every single night, and last Thursday it was a meditation for grief. Those living with it, those who have denied it, and it's in the past, and they're just coming to terms with it. It's so poignant. You should hope you bring that show back as well. I love the sound of this, Doomscrolling. Is that your title?
No, this word is out there on Twitter.
Oh, right.
I'm not sure who came up with it. Somebody who I think popularised it was a tweeter. What they call now is X, isn't it?
Yeah, an X, I know. It's not the same. The one thing I liked, I'm not that fond of Twitter, but I love the word. I always think, Twitter was quite kind.
They kind of make sense now, so I don't know the terminology, I'm afraid. But there's an X poster, God knows. But there's an American, I think she's a journalist called Karen K. Ho, worth giving a follow. She's very funny. And I feel like she popularised it. She called herself the Doomscrolling lady for a while. And she had a feed which reminded you to stop Doomscrolling. So I'm going to give the credit to her. But I just felt like it's good to have a title that tells the audience immediately like what they're in for, and like you feel something.
And we have all done it. We've all literally done it. To go back to you doing the show at Camden, so is it one night only?
It's two. It's the 24th and 26th of August.
Okay, 24th, 26th of August. As we're chatting, how can people book? Can they, as they're listening to us, can they book now?
Yes, you can go to camdenfringe.com and you can search, and I'm at the Camden Comedy Club.
At the Camden Comedy Club, and the show is called Doomscrolling.
Yes,
okay, Doomscrolling, 25th and 26th. I listened to Radio 4 yesterday, I don't know if you heard it, and they had the girl up at Edinburgh this year who only had one member in the audience.
Yes.
But I mean, Radio 4 then grabbed her. I would imagine the next shows. But it was the funniest thing because she said that one member of the audience, she'd asked to come along because she'd met her in the street just prior. And she said it was that horrible thing of that woman had to laugh at everything for 40 minutes. I mean, is that your fear? I've only just met you. I think you could cope with anything. I think if the roof fell in, you'd just keep going and make it funny.
So I never had one person in. I had 4 in. And I think that, I think a preachers would do it for the anecdote, because you can talk about
the anecdote is brilliant, isn't it?
Small audiences can be really beautiful. They can be wonderful. I like to keep not intense eye contact, but I like the feedback. I like them to know they can speak back to me. So I put in a quiz in the I'm a Amy Winehouse show, and I like them to know the fourth wall is broken. But at the same time, you need to get how they feel, and I wouldn't make anyone get involved, but. Sometimes I had a 45-seater room, like in Edinburgh, the much bigger rooms than sometimes you can get the audience for when you're new. And sometimes it's half full, 20, 25. They can often be harder audiences because it just depends on the chemistry between people and who they're with.
Yeah.
But 4 often want you to do well.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah, I bet.
I might give one a try and see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally get that. So doom scrolling. What do you think? I mean, there is. You say the girl with the feed gives you the antidote to how to stop. I mean, how do you stop rather than just turn your phone? Because you're drawn to it, aren't you, like a magnet?
Yeah, and I find actually, I don't know if many people listening are on this, but I'm on TikTok, and it's not all the time, but there's something about these little videos that just people are so good at them. How to stop? If I had the answer, we'd all be doing a lot better.
You see, I didn't know this. Amy, my producer, when I knew you were coming in and we were chatting prior to the show, because I don't really follow TikTok at all, because I think it would be my downfall. Do you know what I mean? I do literally love it. I love YouTube, I love Instagram, and I just think if I took on TikTok, I don't know, I'd even get here to sit down. But she was telling me, it fitting alongside the subject of doom scrolling, that there is this thing now on TikTok where they'll release little chapters day by day. Say someone's husband's been unfaithful, that person will release, this is what he did, this is how I found out, and so of course, I mean, her even explaining that to me, I thought, I'd be there like a shot. It's clever, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good storytelling when it comes down to it. It's episodic storytelling. So like in the show, I go into the fact that throughout history, human beings have always loved knowledge, love gossip. We want to know everything, but also distraction. That's also distraction, and it keeps us away from what we feel we should be doing, productivity culture and all of that stuff. And like, I did an English degree. I used to hoover up novels in a slightly pre-internet age in the 90s. But novels, when they first came out in sort of the 17th century, was seen as trash, as like taking people's attention away from what's important. And so I think if you create stuff and if you work in the media, possibly it's easier to leave sometimes because you've got to do the work and like put the story together. But that also means after hours, I found particularly young people and new kind of staffers, they'd be sending in stories after hours, so they never switched off. So it is willpower at the end of the day, and it is having something worth your time.
Yes.
And that might sound a bit... You hope everyone would have that worthwhile thing offline.
On-off button, yeah.
But we live in quite a difficult, unequal age where people are struggling, and escapism might be what they need.
And also people are proud about how much they work or how early they get and how little sleep. They're proud of it now, which is so wrong, isn't it? It's so. But also going back to gossip, I can't, anyone that says I hate gossip, I just think, well, what are you about then?
Everyone gossips. Everyone
but
gossips.
some people just don't like it. And I just think if you're interested in humanity, in the human species, surely you're intrigued by gossip, aren't you?
Absolutely. And gossip is it's a gendered word. And I think if anyone's interested in that, there's a great podcast called The Illusionist, which looks at the meanings of words and how they come to be. And gossip is seen as such like a women's thing, but men do it, everyone does it. Because you don't know what people are really like, or like in a workplace, what the real deal is. It's the lifeblood of any sort of group of human beings. You have to have it.
Yeah. Can I just say also, you must be wonderful on stage. You've got one of the best voices ever. I think people could hear you if we open the window and just let you talk, because usually I'm having to say people move in. You've got an amazing voice, which will really help you, I think, doing stand-up. I'm sure it has done.
I've had a microphone fail on me before. I had to carry on.
I don't think that would bother you. I don't think anything would bother you. I can't wait to see this show. So 24th and 26th. So you've got a day to rest in between.
Yes.
And you're Suchandrika, which I said to her, Suchandrika, it's such a beautiful name, and then stumbled over it 3 times. Suchandrika Chakrabarti. It's called Doomscrolling, as I say, on at the Camden Comedy. Catch it before it goes up to Edinburgh. I just think it's such an inspired idea, and also because most people who have a smartphone will be guilty of it. Would you agree?
And it's a kind show. I call it a clinic.
I'm sure.
I'm going to heal you.
Would you ever? Are you still a journalist? Will you go back to that, or have you just departed for the time being?
Not newsrooms. I think I'm burnt out and done. But writing bits and pieces.
You're not burnt out. You're a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.